Kirby is known throughout the gaming world as the gluttonous globe with the tickle-me-pink complexion, but there's more to this tough puff than meets the eye. Hey everyone, I'm Jacob with the Leaderboard, and we've got 107 facts you should know about Kirby. And before we start, remember to hit that subscribe button so you can inhale all of our videos and click that bell icon to join our notification squad. Let's do this. Kirby is best known as a Nintendo franchise, but they're actually just the publishers. All the games are developed by a separate Japanese company, HAL Laboratory. The company was founded back in 1980 and works under Nintendo. The company behind the puffball had their sights set high when they named themselves. The letters in the name, HAL, are meant to put them one step ahead of IBM. And last we checked, IBM doesn't have a Kirby, so they're already winning in our book. Though HAL Lab is best known for the Kirby series, they've also had their hands in a few of Nintendo's prominent cookie jars. They're the dev team behind the Mother or Earthbound series, as well as a little franchise that's pretty niche, you might not have heard of it. It's called Super Smash Bros. HAL Lab's close relationship with Nintendo is the source of a lot of creativity for the Kirby franchise. Without Nintendo there to spur them on, the devs would be a lot safer and more restrictive with their game ideas. However, Nintendo puts a lot of energy into asking questions and helping them come up with ambitious new concepts. Kirby himself was created by Masahiro Sakurai when he was just 19 years old. Sakurai's first job as a game director was on the very first Kirby title, so their careers really blossomed alongside each other. At that time, Nintendo was looking for new games that could be enjoyed by a wider audience. After all, Nintendo games back then were known for being unforgivingly brutal. That gave Sakurai the inspiration to come up with a cute character that everyone would like. That cute character was not meant to be Kirby though. Sakurai was only using the amorphous blob with eyes as a placeholder in order to demonstrate the idea of his game. The team loved the simple design though, and thus a superstar was born. Another perk of Kirby's simple, bubbly design, he's really easy to draw. Satoru Iwata has said that Kirby's popularity is in part thanks to the fact that anyone can grab a pencil and doodle him into their notebooks. You just draw a bunch of circles, and yet I still can't draw him well. Since the first Kirby game was being developed for the original Game Boy and it was made in black and white, nobody knew what color Kirby actually was. So when Sakurai decided that he would be pink for the full color promotional art, the other devs on the team were shocked. They had been imagining him as yellow or white, which probably has to do with the Game Boy's limited color display. Shigeru Miyamoto felt that Kirby's pink color helped him feel like a fresh new character. Historically, iconic blobs have been yellow, like Pac-Man or Nubo or, I don't know, Cheese Wheels, I guess. The bubblegum aesthetic helped Kirby stand out from the crowd. That being said, yellow Kirby still pops up whenever Kirby needs a color palette change. This second banana is called Kirby, a name that first appeared in Kirby's Dream Course. Even though the yellow-bodied, orange-footed Star Warrior has continued to pop up as Kirby's most prominent color swap in games like The Amazing Mirror, Air Ride, and Smash Bros, he hasn't been called by that name for a while. Kirby's original name didn't stick either. The character was originally named Popopo, and the game was going to be called Twinkle Popo. However, Nintendo didn't think that that was such a great choice and encouraged them to pick a name that was less guttural sounding. Popopo found its way back into Kirby canon over time though. In Mass Attack, the archipelago setting of the game is called the Popopo Islands, a way more suitable use for that name. The name Kirby was actually a suggestion by Nintendo of America. Aiming to give the character global appeal, the developers consulted their US division for names, and that was the one on the list that stood out to them. Another possibility from the list? Gasper. Given Kirby's then white, ghost-like appearance, this was likely an allusion to Casper, of the friendly ghost variety. Kirby, on the other hand, was inspired by John Kirby, the lawyer that saved Nintendo from a copyright lawsuit by Universal. They were suing for the similarities between Donkey Kong and King Kong, and Nintendo was not a juggernaut company who could make all of that go away. Kirby helped them win the case, and not only did Nintendo thank him with a sailboat, the Donkey Kong, but also by putting his name on the shortlist for their next big mascot. Kirby's flying abilities were added to keep the game beginner-level friendly. Since previous Nintendo platformers like Super Mario Bros. Emphasized coordinated, precise jumping, the developers figured that flight would greatly help unadvanced players navigate those obstacles. It wasn't long afterward that they came up with Kirby's signature inhaling powers. Once they reasoned that Kirby can fly by inhaling air, they began to wonder what else he could inhale, or who else. That led them to the idea of inhaling enemies, and the rest is history. And also, I'm hungry now. Kirby may look short compared to other characters in games like Smash Bros, but he's actually even shorter in canon. He's only 20 centimeters or about 7 inches tall. That's shorter than the 1 foot tall Pikachu and completely dwarfed by the 6'3" Samus. According to one Nintendo bio, Kirby dislikes caterpillars, and I'm not sure if that means he dislikes them as people or just how they taste. Kirby's distaste for caterpillars is especially ironic considering his attraction to butterflies. Numerous games feature him chasing or surrounded by them. Dreamland, Superstar, Squeak Squad, and Triple Deluxe all open with Kirby chilling with some winged insects, while Return to Dreamland and Planet Robobot both feature some butterflies near the end. In America, we refer to Kirby as male, but nothing indicates that he's actually a boy. In Japan, they use genderless pronouns for Kirby. Ever since Kirby's first voice-acted role for the original Super Smash Bros., he's been voiced by Makiko Omoto, who also provides the voice of Ness. Though Kirby's gotta be a pretty easy job for her, just squeak and shout hi sometimes. The first Kirby game, Kirby's Dream Land, came out for the Game Boy in April of 1992. That means Kirby just celebrated his 25th anniversary this past year. The game was created without the use of an actual keyboard. Instead, the developers used a twin Famicom, which employed a trackball to control an on-screen keyboard. This slow and unorthodox dev process didn't faze the young Sakurai though. It was his first ever game, so he just thought that this was how it worked. As a Game Boy game, Kirby's Dream Land could only take up 512 kilobytes of data, which would be like a spec or less in a modern game. To keep the size low, a lot of design cheats were used. That's why Waddle Dees and Waddle Doos recycle the same torso. Kirby's wicked dance moves are just his generic moveset animations rearranged to look like he's dancing. This was another way of conserving space while still giving Kirby some personality, and I relate to this strongly because my dance moves are also normal movements, but worse. Gordo's shape was another design shortcut. Each quarter of its body is the same, just rotated. It's a simple and practical design that stuck and is now immediately recognizable. There's one enemy who they spared no expense on though, the one and only Big Bad himself, King Dedede. As the main villain and the only enemy in his level, they dedicated all of the available data allotment to him. Why does that sound so typically greedy of Dedede? On the topic of Dedede, some people aren't totally clear on how his name is supposed to sound. In America, we of course pronounce it Dedede. In Japan though, they say King Dedede, and in Super Smash Bros., the crowd cheering his name actually seems to switch between the two because apparently they have no idea either. Kirby's other big rival, Wispy Woods, has an alternate name too. According to one magazine, he's also called the Larkspur Liar, but then the question is, by who though? Say, you ever hear of a thing called a sweet potato? Apparently we don't know what those are in America, because when Kirby's Dream Land was localized, they replaced the sweet potato power-up with a mint leaf. So instead of hiccuping air puffs at enemies, American Kirby is burping minty breath at them, as if either one of those makes sense anyway. Other items received localized makeovers too. Super Spicy Curry was renamed Spicy Food, Energy Drink was renamed Pep Brew, and the Maxim Tomato was retitled Bag of Magic Food. Some of these localizations were undone in future installments, cause, you know, we have all of those things in America. The Super Spicy Curry disappeared from the franchise after this first game. It reappeared about 15 years later as an item in Super Smash Bros. Brawl and has since remained in that franchise. It also popped up in Mass Attack. I guess Kirby just needed a breather before going back for seconds. As you'll soon see, the Kirby series has a lot of cameos. Some of the first cameos, though, were by HAL Labs' other characters. Lololo and Lalala, the bosses of Castle Lololo, are actually the heroes of the Adventures of Lolo or Eggerland game. Despite Kirby's copy ability being the main gimmick of the franchise, it actually didn't appear in the first game. They didn't add it until the next entry, Kirby's Adventure, released the following year. Even though Kirby was meant to be a beginner game, fans complained that the first installment was too easy. For the sequel, Sakurai aimed to keep it safe for newbies, but add more complexity for advanced players. That's where the copy ability came in. It gave skilled players incentive to engage with the enemies rather than just fly over them. The devs compiled a list of over 40 potential copy abilities. They slowly whittled down that number to the 26 available in the final game. Among the cut abilities were a block-making power, shrinking, rocket, animal, where Kirby scratched and bit enemies, digging holes, turning invisible, multiplying, and turning into a puddle. So Kirby was practically a Pokemon. Although some of these may sound familiar nowadays as they made their way into later games. There are approximately 65 standard copy abilities in the Kirby franchise, and about 98 if you count all of the mixed abilities from Crystal Shard and Squeak Squad. Kirby's stone ability is a frequent source of those cameos I mentioned. Throughout the various games that it's appeared in, it takes on a variety of forms, including a Mario statue, a brick block from the Super Mario series, a Samus statue, the HAL logo, and a variety of other characters from other Kirby games. The philosophy of Kirby games is not only to make them progressively more difficult as you advance through each level, but progressively darker too. The devs always put their lighter and more fun levels early on in the games, and as the mood darkens more and more, skies go gray and the visuals get more grim. This is to show players that they're actually progressing. Kirby games are always jam-packed with sub-games. That's right in line with the philosophy that Kirby is meant to appeal to a wide audience. The extra content adds variety and brings in more players, the more the merrier. Kirby's Adventure has a code hidden in the level names. If you spell out the first letter of each area, you get VIBGYOR. That's Roy G. Biv backwards, a common mnemonic device used to remember the colors of a rainbow. Since then, hidden words have become a mainstay in the franchise. Triple Deluxe's levels spelled out flowered, Return to Dreamland spelled out crowned, Canvas Curse spelled rainbow, and Planet Robobot spelled out program. After the events of Kirby's Adventure, Nightmare blows a chunk of the moon off. You can still see the now crescent-shaped moon in all following Kirby titles. Kirby's arch-frenemy/mentor Meta Knight made his debut in Kirby's Adventure. However, he was never called by that name. It wouldn't be revealed until Kirby's Avalanche, which came out 2 years later. Meta Knight's armor used to be way more detailed and, pretty. Original concept art of him shows that he had red butterfly-like armor and wings. It's actually pretty badass looking, but way more flamboyant than his bat wings. Meta Knight never had a proper voice until the Kirby anime, in which he was given a Spanish accent. Some suspect it's an allusion to another masked swordsman, Zorro. Or maybe it's just a mysterious accent for a mysterious guy. Coincidentally, Meta Knight's anime voice actor was named Eric Stewart, and his Smash Bros. Voice actor was Eric Newsom. Maybe that's Meta Knight's meta secret. Maybe his name's just Eric. One of Kirby's earliest appearances is actually as a cameo in 1993's Zelda game Link's Awakening. Called Anti-Kirby, the globby, smiling enemy will inhale you and spit you back out just like the genuine article. It's, much less fun when you're on the other side of it. To return the favor for Kirby's cameo in Link's Awakening, the team doubled down on homages in Superstar, especially in the Great Cave Offensive subgame. Among the treasures that can be found are Metroid's Screw Attack, Legend of Zelda's Triforce, Donkey Kong's Barrel, Earthbound's Mr. Saturn, Captain Falcon's Helmet, and more. It's like the precursor to Super Smash Bros. In a franchise as cute as Kirby, you know there's some creepy stuff lurking under the surface. If you look at the full level layout of level 5-5 in Dreamland 2, you'll see that it resembles the anatomy of a naked woman. A similar layout appeared in Yoshi's Island. Is this how the repressed folks at Nintendo and HAL get their kicks? The gameplay in Superstar took inspiration from fighting games. The concept of combo moves was borrowed and applied to Kirby's copy abilities to diversify them, allowing multiple move possibilities. Oh, and there's also literally a fighter Kirby that exemplifies this expanded moveset. While two-player compatibility was a good addition to the Kirby series, Sakurai noticed a problem with it in practice. Player 1 typically took out the enemies with just one hit, while player 2 pretty much just watched. To get the second player to be more than just a cheerleader, Sakurai beefed up the fodder enemies with multiple hit points. That allowed tag-teaming players to take them down with the old 1-2. The development of Kirby Superstar lasted an unusually long time, 3 years, all thanks to Donkey Kong. Due to the positive reception of the computer graphics used in Donkey Kong Country, the Superstar dev team was pressured into incorporating them into their own product. Midway through production, they tossed out all of their art in favor of the brand spanking new technique. Superstar's title used to be a little more active. It was literally Kirby of the Stars Active. The subtitle was meant to show that the game had more involved gameplay than ever before. However, that was dropped when Shigesato Itoi came aboard and hopefully gently told them it wasn't that good. Though if we're talking quality, the Kirby Superstar box art looked quality as heck. It was designed after the Apolonio boxes that Saki and Dishware all sold in. The minimal look conveys a high-class product in Japanese culture, and they wanted to show that this was a high-class game. Alright, forget references, Samus full-on appears in Dreamland 3 to give Kirby a mission: defeat all of the Metroids. When you accomplish that goal, which also happens to be the plot of Metroid 2, Samus will remove her helmet. This is the same thing she does in her own games when her missions are complete. In addition to giving the Kirby games his artistic touch as a frequent director, Sakurai also gave them his literal artistic touch. He did the calligraphy for the Samurai Kirby minigame, first drawing it out with a brush, then scanning it into the computer. Sakurai lent his voice talents too. He voiced King Dedede not only in Crystal Shards, but also in the Super Smash Bros. Series, a role fit for a king. Sakurai, the man of 1,000 voices, also voiced Kirby. When Kirby gets his mic ability and jams out to his latest banger, that's actually Sakurai's voice yelling. On that topic, many players aren't clear what Mike Kirby is yelling or what it means. Chesto is actually a Japanese exclamation, not unlike Hiya in English, so while it sounds like Kirby is belting out the lyrics to a punk anthem, he's actually just exclaiming his attack, which actually is pretty much the same thing. Even though Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards, is the first Kirby game to use 3D graphics, it isn't the first time Kirby appeared in a 3D game. The original Super Smash Bros. Predates it, making that title the first time we saw his balloon-like shape in full 3D glory. Good news and bad news from the Crystal Shards. Good news is that it looks like Earth may be a real planet in the Kirby universe, but the bad news? It might also be a frozen wasteland. The fifth world, Shiver Star, bears a striking resemblance to Earth, both from space and the planet's surface. Wait, does that technically make Kirby a post-apocalyptic series? More speculation for you. For a long time, fans wondered if Ado from Dreamland 3 and Adeline from Crystal Shards were the same character. They look nearly identical and have suspiciously similar names. The characters' androgynous genders didn't help rule out any possibilities either. Finally, the 25th anniversary book confirmed via concept art that they are one and the same. Crystal Shards is the third installment of the fan-dubbed Dark Matter trilogy. The trio also includes Dreamland 2 and 3, and is so called because each game directly deals with Dark Matter as the main villain. All three were also directed by Shinichi Shimomura rather than Sakurai. As a Nintendo figurehead, Kirby has some of the best representation in the Super Smash Bros. Series. It helps that they share a developer too. Kirby, Meta Knight, and King Dedede are all playable characters, while Knuckle Joe and Nightmare are assist trophies. Several iconic locations also appear as arenas, such as the Fountain of Dreams, Green Greens, the Halberd, and the Great Cave Offensive. Kirby's black alternate costume in the Super Smash Bros. Series gives him the same color scheme as Meta Knight. This adds fuel to the theory fire that Meta Knight and Kirby are the same species. For his Super Smash Bros. Palette, King DDD looks like he accessed his wardrobe from older Kirby games. Many of his outfits resemble color schemes he's had in Kirby 64 and in Air Ride. Turns out the Emperor doesn't actually need new clothes. Meta Knight's purple costume from the Super Smash Bros. Series bears a striking resemblance to Galacta Knight from Meta Nightmare Ultra. The main antagonist of the Smash Bros. Games, Master Hands, even has his dirty fingers in the Kirby franchise. He pops up as a mini-boss in Amazing Mirror. Guess that's what happens when franchises share a development company. Kirby's Smash Bros. Moveset is a mashup of multiple copy abilities, but in Amazing Mirror it became a copy ability itself. The Smash Power, which he can get by inhaling Master Hand, gives him all of his techniques from Melee. A scrapped Kirby gameplay idea was later recycled for Super Smash Bros. In Kirby's Dreamland, it was planned that Kirby would be blasted off screen when defeated. However, this idea was never implemented. The concept, however, returned for Super Smash Bros. A few years later, supposedly by complete accident. Air Ride's development was far from a race. It actually began as an N64 game. Originally called Kirby Bowl 64, it went through a long development process that ultimately culminated in a cancellation. Many years later, in 2003, it popped back up at E3, now as a GameCube title. Voicing DDD must be a rite of passage for Kirby directors. After Sakurai left HAL Laboratory in 2003, Shinya Kumazaki took over voicing DDD. Some concept art for Canvas Curse indicates at one point Dark Matter may have actually been a playable character. Any plans for that were dropped in the final version though, and his only role in that game was as a cameo in Pain Panic. Even if Dark Matter was cut from the game, there's another dark entity making an appearance instead, and this one's from Earthbound. During the boss battle with Drossia, the background becomes a rippling red and black, reminiscent of the fight with Gygas from HAL's Mother series. This wouldn't be the first time Kirby games have referenced Earthbound. The cap that Kirby wears when he has the yo-yo ability is just like Ness's, a character whose weapon of choice is also a yo-yo. Kirby also sports the cap in Planet Robobot when he has the ESP abilities, another trademark of Ness. According to a 20th anniversary art book, Dark Nebula from Squeak Squad is the same species of creature as Dark Matter. Dark must be a family name then. In the Secret Sea level of Squeak Squad, Kirby discovers the flooded shipwreck of Meta Knight's airship, the Halberd. The vessel originally crashed into Orange Ocean in the Superstar subgame Revenge of Meta Knight. Epic Yarn wasn't always a Kirby game. When it was conceived, it was actually a Prince Fluff game. However, the World of Fluff idea didn't feel complete, so Nintendo recommended transforming it into a Kirby game. Luckily, our adaptable hero fit right into the Yarn art style. Yarn Kirby made his first appearance decades before Epic Yarn ever came out. The original Japanese ad for Kirby's Adventure features all of the characters in a Yarn style similar to that future title's art style. The game title Triple Deluxe has layers of meaning. According to Kumazaki, it reflects not only the 3D capabilities of the 3DS, but also the deluxe nature of the Hypernova ability and the prominence of King DDD and his Triple Ds in the plotline. Original title ideas were going to focus on the island setting or the fact that it was the 10th main series installment. It's always been said that Kirby could inhale anything, but that wasn't technically true. With the Hypernova ability, the dev team wanted to make that catchphrase literal. They threw out all of their usual limitations and let Kirby do what he does best: eat everything. Even the Waddle Dees want to get in on some of the Kirby gaming action. In Planet Robobot, some Ds can be spotted playing Kirby's Adventure on the NES. Planet Robobot was originally titled Triple Deluxe 2, however the creative team didn't want it to feel like they were treading the same ground all over again. When they came up with the Robobot armor, that completely changed the direction and story of the game, taking it into an exciting new sci-fi direction. Haltman's secretary robot Suzy gets her name from the Japanese word for digit, Suji. Kumazaki wanted her to have a human female name though, so it was just a hop, skip, and a jump over to the name Suzy. Other considerations included Melissa and Beatrice, but those don't have the same punny ring to them. The new abilities are meant to reflect this sci-fi tone. While Kirby abilities traditionally have a fairy tale fantasy tinge to them, the team wanted the Robobot powers to feel mechanical and spacey. Ergo, abilities like ESP and UFO were incorporated. The staff actually has Robobot armor of their own. You know, not like a functional suit, but a 3D printed sculpture. They created it as a reference so they know the shape and where all the little details are. Kirby games typically receive high marks from reviewers, with most of its aggregate scores ranking in the 80s. The highest scored titles, according to Metacritic, are Epic Yarn and Canvas Curse, both very untraditional Kirby titles, but everyone has their own favorites. To this day, the highest selling Kirby game of all time is still the original Kirby's Dream Land, with over 5 million units sold. The closest competition is Kirby Superstar Ultra with approximately 3 million units sold. You just can't beat the classics. There's been a new Kirby game every single year since 1992, with the exception of 1998. As of now, there are approximately 34 Kirby titles on the market, including all of the main series and spin-off titles. There have been numerous canceled Kirby titles throughout the years, but one of the more interesting lost concepts was a horror game. It would have been called Kagero Mansion and was about Kirby's mouth being sealed shut by a curse. Since he couldn't use copy by inhaling, he'd have to use resources like like a candlestick to get fire. Sakurai calls it a horror action game with puzzle elements, like Luigi's Mansion, but Kirbyfied. It's a common gag among fans that American Kirby is way angrier than Japanese Kirby. On all of the US box art, he's got a little angry eyebrows. Apparently, this is because Kirby's cute look is a bigger selling point for Japanese audiences, while American audiences are more into the action and battles of the game. Because #America, even our cute puffballs have to be hardcore. The Kirby game franchise was such a hit that it expanded into an anime. Kirby Right Back At Ya, as it was called in America, premiered in Japan in 2001 and was brought to the States a year later. Many Kirby fans admit that it was the anime that first hooked them onto the series. One of Sakurai's limitations for the Kirby anime was that Kirby himself wasn't allowed to speak. It's an easy practice to have a silent protagonist in a video game like Mario or Link, but more difficult in a TV show where everyone else is talking. Despite the clear challenge, Soji Yoshikawa was able to get inspiration from other quiet cartoon characters like Snoopy. The other limitation was that no humans were allowed. Even though there are some stray humans in the series, he didn't want Kirby being part of a typical human civilization. As a result, the series has entirely unique settings and species, something that Yoshikawa has likened to the Moomins comic series in Sweden. Right Back At You was produced by Warpstar Inc., and that's not just a naming coincidence. That company is a collaborative effort between HAL Laboratory and Nintendo, and one that hasn't seemed to work on anything besides the Kirby anime. The series ran for exactly 100 episodes. Though it began airing in America just 1 year after its original release in Japan, there was a 3-year gap between the finale air dates, 2003 in Japan and 2006 for the States. Even though Right Back At Ya ended its run in 2006, a 3D follow-up short was released in Japan in 2009. The short came to America a few years later, reuniting almost the entire original cast from the series. The anime was so popular that it affected the games. For example, Water Kirby debuted in Right Back At Ya, but was later added into installments like Return to Dreamland and Star Allies. DDD's castle was another import from the anime. The design was reused in Squeak Squad, Epic Yarn, and Mass Attack. Squeak Squad even had the Monster Machine. Meta Knight's sword, Galaxia, owes a lot to the anime. That's where it was first given its name, as well as its pronged design. After that look was featured on the show, it carried over into games like Amazing Mirror and Super Smash Bros. The modern Kirby logo actually originated from Right Back At Ya. All the games prior to the anime used a flat, bubbly font rather than the star-studded logo seen ever since. Mass Attack features a ton of cameos from anime original characters. Fan favorites like Escargoon, Chef Shiitake, and even the enemy salesman all appear. Archie Comics had history of great video game adaptations, including their now cancelled Mega Man and Sonic series, but at one point they were in the running for a Kirby series too. They were attempting to sell Nintendo on a cereal about the Pink Puff, along with a Mario and Metroid series. Ultimately, Nintendo wasn't interested, but this Mario concept art really makes us wonder what they came up with for Kirby. I'm Jacob with the Leaderboard, and this has been 107 Facts About Kirby. What's your favorite Kirby combo? Are you pumped for the new Kirby game for Switch? Comment below and let us know. Don't forget to click the bell icon to become part of our notification squad, and if you like getting more from your games, subscribe to the Leaderboard, your home for video game facts.